Welcome back to Liquidity and Liquor. Scott and Yosef here. Today we're talking about how to hire. So a lot of different ways, a lot of different things to think about when you're hiring, a lot of different positions, but let's just give like general best tips and advice.
There are two parts where if I need to give any advice would be, first is how do you pick the right people, and then how do you onboard them? That's the two parts, right? So in terms of picking, and I'll give my input on how I did it well and how I made a mistake. And I'll give a very specific example. And every time I kind of like gravitate towards explanation, it always comes down to marketing, because I made a good decisions hiring certain people because of the answers they gave me. But then I made the same mistake for not going through that route.
Yeah.
One time once I got distracted. So, and I did speak about this before, right? So let's start about the picking the people, right? So I had those 3 questions that I asked anyone that I hired for marketing, and it was very famous if you keep hearing this in the past. But for new listeners, let me tell you how I did this. I used to ask those 3 questions in marketing if you come to work for me. One is, all right, I'm giving you $5,000 to start marketing for your mom's jewelry company. How do you use this $5,000 a month? Go. I want to listen. Then the second question was, now I'm giving you $100,000 a month. How do you use $100,000 a month? Go. Now I'm giving you $1 million every month. Budget. Go. And I want to hear tactical examples. If you actually started, if you did any marketing, you would know what to answer for 5,000. 100,000 showed me that you did some at scale, but you did start from the bottom, but you had some at scale knowledge, and you would tell me where you can be in the organization. Then 1 million showed me that you actually went all the way through, but eventually had a larger scale, you have a bigger perspective, and you can do it more of an enterprise level. Now, anywhere in between, you can say, well, if you did 1 well, okay, but you didn't do 2 and 3, doesn't mean I'm not going to hire you. I just need to know, so then I can from there ask, how good are you in the first part? Right? If you might tell me that you didn't do 1 well, but if you were at 2 or 3, right? Am I going to hire you? The problem is I wouldn't. I always needed you to do 1 well. 2 and 3 is just how I'm going to place you in the organization. If you didn't do 1 well, 2 and 3, that means you have no basis. You're just theoretical. I don't need you. You just managed people. I don't want you to. You have no knowledge on. So that was the first thing. Have you ever done the job? Think of a mechanic.
So you got to find a way to summarize that. You got to find a way with questions to find out how they've actually executed on the thing that they're going to be doing.
Yes.
And it could be any department.
Yeah. In my case, if you're, let's just say, if you're a mechanic, you said, well, I want to hire a manager. Okay, you still need to be a mechanic in your core to understand what's a crankshaft. Okay, I can't hire you if you've never been a mechanic, right? Because sometimes they're going to call it. It's the same exact thing in your business. Do the same part. The second part is, once you bring them on board, how good are you kind of like setting them for success? And that is all about the orientation, the training.
Onboarding, making sure that the goals of the role are clearly defined.
There are 2 parts.
Yeah.
One is the department, and then is the overall business.
Yes.
So if you think about the department, it depends how tier your organization is if you're just building it for yourself. But if you're working in an organization that has already, say, 6 levels, which means coordinator to the CEO, there are 6 levels, CEO, C-levels underneath the CEO, then SVPs, then VPs, then directors, all the way down to, right? Then the departments have to have their own orientations. And your job as a CEO is to see how is the retention and how is the performance of a department. And then if they kind of like bring people that there's a challenge in one of the departments, you go over there and you say, okay, is it part of the hiring or is it part of the onboarding or both? And then there is the overall kind of like idea for the whole organization. How do you onboard everybody for the organization so they can understand just generally what the business is all about? And the idea is to always make it short and sweet, something that they can wake up and say it when they're sleeping. Very, very important. Think of a billboard. They need to know what it's all about and then give it to them. Think of if you have an organization with, say, 1,000 employees, you can't expect everyone to remember a big paragraph with say
It's like a thesis of a mission statement.
Of mission statement, right?
Yeah.
It needs to be a billboard. Why? When you think of the Hebrews leaving Egypt, they had the 10 Commandments. They didn't go and hand them over a Bible. They were analphabets. They did nothing. Well, let's start with the shall not kill, the basic. That's what you give everyone. The more specific, more detailed one, kind of like think of a short case Bible, that's going to be on the department level, specific to what they need to know.
I think one thing that I found to be true when you're hiring, especially VP, SVP, C-suite, when you are hiring them before you bring them into the organization, if your first choice doesn't work out, don't go to your second choice. Start the search over again. Because your second choice is a reason why you didn't pick them. And I think that is one of the most important tactics when you're hiring at a very high level. And I'm right now, I have some portfolio companies. We're hiring operators.
But if both of them are equally good, but something about...
There's a reason why you didn't pick them. Very rarely should you ever go to the second person. There's a psychological reason why you didn't pick them. And I think it's better for you to just start over.
It's a good point.
Yeah, there's a reason. Especially for people that are like mission critical in the business. So
I can give you at least one very solid example of why that was so right, what you just said. We had a search for a data scientist.
Yeah.
That was supposed to go in and kind of like take us from the Stone Age where we were doing all the shipments out of Excel sheet, where our logistic guy was scrambling for 24 hours trying to figure out who needs to get what in that box. And it was just a mission. And we brought in a guy that was with a PhD. He was doing the Rubik's Cube in seconds, genius supposedly. But he wasn't our first pick. The first pick ended up going to, I think, Google. Because we had to compete on those positions with Google and Amazon. Like, why would they come to a subscription box? They don't know who we are. And this guy came, and it wasn't our first pick. And it took us a devastating experience to let that person go, where it was so preventable that anyone, I would say, the solution for what he should have done could have been sold by any person in the company except him. He was the only one that didn't understand what everyone else understood in the company.
So there's the reason why we psychologically pick the second person. There's like a sunk cost fallacy. We've already done the work. We don't want to start again. It seems like there's too much energy required to start again. And we're like, you know what? I'm sure he's good enough, or I'm sure she's good enough. And they're not. And that's the reason why we didn't pick them.
That's a great point.
Start again.
Listen to this one, guys. This is amazing.
All right. Okay, that's it for today. If you enjoyed, please subscribe on YouTube. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can download and listen to it wherever you get your podcasts or on liquidityandliquor.com.